All right, I'll entertain a motion to come out of recess.
Motion.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Holmgren, second from Councilmember Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. We'll come out of motion, or come out of recess. And Josie, what was it that we wanted to talk about first, you'd said?
So Mayor and Council, if we could continue discussion for business item E2, which was requested by Deanna Austin
Yep.
for a handicap parking sign location. I'd like to clarify, I was incorrect in a statement that I gave, which was that if she removed her handicap parking stall out of her back parking lot, that it could be moved to a different location. And Mr. Cook corrected me before the meeting and said, no, that was required per our code. So I'll let Mr. Cook take it on for the rest of the discussion on that, but I did want to make sure that I corrected my error. Thank you.
So yeah, when this site was designed, they didn't, well, I believe it started with no off-street parking. They tried to use our street parking for their required parking. And they're required to have a certain number of lots and meet the handicap stalls off-street for their own site. Like, that's just what our code or ordinance, or I get the words wrong, but, so at the time, it was, no, you're required to have, and then maybe it was 3, regular stalls and 1 handicap stall. And so that's why they have what they have on the off-street parking. They weren't allowed to use the street parking, because then if everybody didn't build any parking, it would just run out of parking spaces. And so that's why their handicap stall is on their off-street parking lot per our requirements, and that's how it got set there. Actually, at one point, they did have a handicap stall drawn up on Main Street, right in front of their building, and that's when they were trying to just say, well, if I have to have 3 stalls and 1 handicap, I'll put them on the street in front of my business. And so we more or less said, well, you have to have it on your off-street. Now, we didn't technically say you can't have another one on street, but you have to have the off-street one. And that was how that came to be. Now, it sounds like they're asking to add one back. My original understanding was that spot on Main Street, and I would still say, as long as council's okay with making a handicap stall there, I guess that's fine. The same problem that was originally when they drew it up there is exactly what currently is there. You would physically have to leave your handicap accessible vehicle, and to get on a ped ramp, you'd have to circle around into that bullnose that sticks out. Right. And that was what their proposed plan was. And so if they still want to do that and council's okay with allowing them to put in a handicap sign, I don't have a problem with it. I don't recommend allowing them to remove their off-street, because then that is now moving their parking onto the street. And that's completely your guys' prerogative, but that's why it is what it is. I did also just hear that they were asking about putting it on Second, and Second is our friendly no parking street. It's not wide enough to allow parking, and it's signed already and has a resolution for no parking, and it actually is a state aid route where it's not allowed to have parking. Okay. Even if they were to put it on that street, like by widening it in that segment to meet the requirements, you'd still have to end up making a ped ramp, because a surmountable curb doesn't meet ADA ped ramp, requirements, that whole nuancy, every little height and slope that's required. And so if they were trying to put it on Second to make it have its own ped ramp, then they'd have to rebuild that whole walk to cut down the curb to 0 height, have a landing, have tapers, and a whole chain reaction, along with widening the road about 4 more feet. And a whole chain reaction of if our public sidewalk then is pushed onto a private parcel, maybe getting us easements and a chain reaction of things. But again, that's the background. That's kind of where things sit. I wasn't aware of the Second Street thing until right before the meeting, but that's why that, may look like it's nice and open, because there's no striping or anything left on that street, but there was striping, and it's currently signed no parking right in front of that building.
Quick question. Were all those ordinances and rules in place when they bought and opened up the business?
Yeah, that's why it's built
Right.
this way. Yep.
Just
That was the site
double
plan
check.
review that we did.
Okay.
Yep.
So when they moved into that building, they knew, they already knew.
They were the developers of that site and their parking lot. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's reasonable to allow them to park on Main Street with the handicap. It's a better access point.
Sure,
Granted,
I
they
agree.
should have designed the building to have a more handicap accessible rear door by the handicap spot, because usually the door that's handicap accessible is supposed to be closest to the door.
Well,
But,
technically, that's why we allowed what they did, is they did make the handicap stall that they made the closest accessible thing. It's just they gotta use the sidewalk to get around to the front.
sure.
It doesn't have to be X distance, it just has to be the closest feasible spot. And so that's how this site at least got approved with the handicap, the required stall on their required off-street parking, and they chose the route to make it accessible.
I know you said city code says that we shouldn't allow them to trade basically handicap spots, but in this case, the handicap spot on the street is a significantly better access point than the one in their parking lot. Significantly better.
So you could say that in the distance visually, but by ramp access, they have to go out onto the public street in front of their vehicle.
Depending how their ramp is set up, because I actually prefer this style ramp as someone who actually handles a handicap van with a ramp.
Sure.
It's
But
a
I'm
lot
just
better
saying,
this way.
To be able to go from a parking stall on Main Street onto that ramp, because that's the only ramp, they would have to get out into oncoming traffic, either in a wheelchair or whatever, and be in that traffic to get to that ramp before they're off in a safe area. The current parking is they just have to travel an extra 30 feet, and they never are in conflict with a motor vehicle.
True.
However, if you have side exit doors, which I'd say probably 80% of handicap vans do, your ramp for that handicap van is gonna come down right on that pad that's there on the sidewalk, and you're actually at a better level because you're at a better loading angle for your actual ramp. The only situation where you're gonna go out, even if if your passenger door is on the driver's side or the passenger side, you just park accordingly. So if your ramp is on, say, the driver's side, you're gonna pull in, technically park the wrong direction. You're gonna open your door and it's gonna come down right on that landing sidewalk that's there. And if your ramp is on the other side, well, you're just gonna park like normal. The only situation where a person in actuality is gonna be out on the street is if they have a rear exit handicap van. And at that point, I mean, you should see the stuff that handicap vans have to do. This is nothing compared to some of the stuff down in the cities. Forget about it down there. So I think,
There's a lot of people who are handicapped who aren't in wheelchairs, though.
right, for sure.
If I could also add to this discussion, the zoning code states that off-street parking, if it's physically able to be done, so I would argue or just state that maybe it's possible that the planning commission could determine that their handicap stall doesn't need to be off-street, it could be on the main street. Now, that doesn't apply to Second probably, but if moving the one and removing that to give her more parking in her other area puts the handicap out on Main Street, that is something that the planning commission could make that determination.
I think it makes the most sense because as someone that drives a handicap van, you're most likely going to use this one out front in a real life application. I'm sure there's situations where you wouldn't, but
That's why I hesitant to take the one away from the back in case they don't have a setup like that and they have to come out the back or out the other side of the vehicle. I don't see too many that have access off the driver's side, but there are a few. Then they do have the option to go around to the back and not have to go through traffic in order to get to the door. So in this weird circumstances, it is almost best to have two. I mean, she can almost throw a pillowcase over that handicap sign if she needed to. I'm just kidding. I can't say that. I didn't mean it, but I mean, I don't know if the parking is that tight there. I mean,
Right.
Is
How
it ever
many
that
spots
tight?
total does that lot have?
Showed 4 on the
4.
map, I thought.
Yeah, I believe so.
And how many more would be available on the street on Main for her if needed? Right, the
people
whole
own
street,
run.
right. So I think we leave the one in the back and add one to the front if that's what she wants.
So they can still park on Main Street, that just couldn't be their parking lot, is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, I thought you meant they couldn't park there at all.
No, they
Nope,
can park
nope,
there.
they just had
Got
to
it.
meet the requirement for off-street parking,
Okay,
which they have now. And that's why I say, I don't have any problem adding another no parking spot right in that front spot, or, you know, they could put a sign there. You know, I would actually, I mean, yeah, I mean, that idea of parking backwards, I don't recommend, I don't know that that's legal. And then, like I say, having a secondary one, if anything, I don't know how busy they are where that spot is full from a non-handicapped person all the time. Because if it's not a busy parking space, then a handicapped person can park there. But, yeah, I have no concern with adding another handicap stall if that is what they want. And if they're saying they have a lot of handicap clientele, then they probably should have two spots anyway to provide the two prime spots. If that's, you know, their motivation on asking for this.
sure. Travis, is it illegal to park on the opposite side of the street? I do it all the time in a handicap van, but
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. That's good to know.
Start ticketing them.
Well, I don't do it here, but down in the cities, you have to sometimes. There's no choice. So, okay,
I say we just add the
yeah,
one out on Main Street and leave the rest. That's
I agree.
Now, are you saying, I mean, totally your guys' prerogative, but you're gonna add it, or you're gonna allow them to add it?
That's another question.
Because I'd say that's their, ask for their
Right.
preference, but totally your guys'
Is it just the
What's-
cost of the sign, or what would all be involved in that sign and paint?
Well, it's that same idea, how far do we wanna go, you know? If we're doing it, you know, the sign, and then the logo, the stall stripes, the paint along the curb, you can take it as far as you want and make it as official as you want.
Just the sign.
My initial thought, whether it's correct or not, is if they think it would enhance their business and improve their business and bring in more customers, then it should be on the business to do it. I mean, if I own a business and I thought that would help me out, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I wouldn't look for a handout, but that's just my thought.
What about consistency? What do we normally do?
Well, we
Like,
did add one recently
Yeah.
for outside of Rockstead and Relics.
That was
However,
our
a
request.
council member request, not a business request, so slightly different. We have had in the past years, loading signs be requested for a loading zone, I can think of. And we did have the owner pay for those. I can't think of that many more that have been requested by businesses off the top of my head. But then it should be further discussed if there will be a curb cutout, or for sure that that will not be required for a ramp. Just make
No,
sure.
will not.
I think in this case, since they asked for it, I mean, I think we should charge them for the post and the sign, and we just put it in, because are we required to put those in anyway, since it's in the right of way?
I would recommend that we put it in to ensure that it was done correctly and
Right.
properly in case if someone hit it and does it break away for liability reasons.
Okay,
I think we should also, though, be standard, and it wouldn't take that much time if we're already painting blue by the Rockstead and Relics one, to also paint that to designate exactly how wide that parking stall would be. I say that maybe the city could do that, because we will already be out in the very similar location with blue.
okay.
Sure.
So have them cover the sign of or the cost of the sign, we put in the sign and paint. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Matt?
You want to say?
As Mayor and Council, a sign and a post, you're looking at less than $100. Probably looking at $80 for signs and the post to install it. And
Okay.
we're talking 15 minutes, we can have it in there. We just have to call locate in, give it 48 hours, and we can put a sign in.
Do we
Thanks.
have a sign and a post available, or?
We have a sign and a post on hand.
I'm good with that. So the business pays for the sign, we'll do the install.
And the painting.
Can I make one other point? Because it's in the downtown area, I'm sorry, because it's in the downtown area, and you may have handicap patrons parking there that aren't her business
True.
patrons. It could be for an event, it could be for a neighboring street dance, or business on that street. I just wanted to point that out. it wouldn't be
Sure.
exclusively used just for her business patrons.
Right.
Right.
Are you
And
saying the city
maybe
should
sh-
pay for it?
well, just fill her in on all that before she decides to write a check, if she decides she wants to do it.
I would say the city puts it in and at our expense. We have the sign and post, but
You don't want the
I don't-
implication that she owns it if she puts it in?
well, it's open to the public no matter what. And
Fair.
I want city staff to do it so it's consistent throughout the city. And if she chooses to go out and say, city charges, $80, is it really worth the $80? It's gonna be used by other people,
Fair enough.
so that's just
That's
my,
fair enough, too. I can't argue with that.
All right. I think there's a consensus. Put the dang sign in and paint the curb. Yeehaw! That's good. I like to hear that. I think it's a better option. I would much rather park there than back. But like you said, you could park there regardless, but,
That's why I like 5 opinions up here,
yep. 4, yeah.
4 tonight, right?
Okay, so that is E2. Should we,
Before we move on to any other items, is there any other topics that we would need Jason
Yes.
for? We
So-
should maybe jump to that if there are.
F1, the sidewalk discussion, there's a lot of questions there that I have for you, Jason. If it's okay that we go to that one, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
He doesn't know quite what you're talking about, but we will get him up to speed. Don't worry, Jason.
So F1 is the sidewalk discussion. There's lots of good information there. Let's just start with the Main Street one first, if that's okay. Per the assessment policy, how much of that sidewalk will be a deferred assessment and how much is city responsibility?
So my understanding, I can take that one. So my understanding is that because it would be a commercial, that we could defer, we could assess and ultimately defer if that was our prerogative, the entire sidewalk.
Okay.
Because it would be their responsibility to put the entire sidewalk in. Jason, is that correct? With assessing a sidewalk for
Honestly,
for
I don't know
commercial?
on that commercial piece, so.
What's
it
that?
sounds- I don't know off the top of my head, so if you already know commercial is treated differently than residential, then I'll defer to you. Residential, it's not accessible.
No,
so-
not
Right,
residential, but,
right.
okay, let's come back to it. I'll pull up the policy.
Okay, that sounds good. And then on our Whiskey Road project, I see there's a lot of cost there, especially in a couple little segments. But if and when the county does a reconstruct project, do they generally cover the cost of the sidewalk? I know we're responsible for the sidewalk if we add it afterwards, but we're responsible for it during their project as well. So no matter what, even if the county were to come in and do a total reconstruct on that, and they wanted sidewalks, we would still have to pay for it, the sidewalks.
Yes,
Okay. So we can't wait and try and have the county do the sidewalk at their next project. We're gonna have to foot the bill either way.
yep.
Okay.
And
All
they,
right.
and they won't want a sidewalk. Like, I don't know that they even entertain in analyzing that and coming to us saying they want to add a sidewalk. It's city infrastructure that we would request to have as part of their project. At
Okay.
which point, either way, yes, we're paying for it. Yes, we're paying for the replacement of it, the maintenance of it, all ownership of it.
Okay. And then I know with the Birch project, we had talked about, moving the sidewalk in like 6 or 7 feet to avoid trees. Is it possible to move, if you look at the section of the property number 825, that 200-foot section is, on its own, is $70,000. Is there a way to adjust or kick stuff sideways so that maybe we can avoid some of those expensive movements of, telephone poles or whatever? Is that something you need more analysis on, or
No.
no?
The original study, if you go back to that whatever year that study was, 2016, we did all those and analyzed scenarios. The property line goes to like the bottom of the ditch right now. And so there's nowhere to put it on the back side of the ditch. And then once we're on the front side of the ditch, we need to bench it, at which point we're filling past the property line. And so there isn't a scenario where we don't do work over the property line without getting the easement.
Okay. So the easement is a bunch of that cost, or,
Portion of it,
okay,
you know. I think the way that that broke down was whether or not we do the crossing on Cedar with moving the culvert over and getting the ped ramps placed where we'd want them. That was I don't know what specifically you're looking at, but that's a chunk of cost that, when I kind of broke that down for you guys, I included in, well, once we actually get to Cedar, then we incur that whole intersection work, moving culverts and building ped ramps, which that's a big cost, as opposed to just running the 200 feet of straight 5-foot wide sidewalk. But,
how much is a ped ramp? Average ped ramp, run of the mill,
I'd just say 15 grand.
why? Just the engineering aspect of it you said earlier, right?
Well, so it's gotta be thicker concrete, cause it has to be rebarred together from the ramp to the landing. It has the truncated domes. You usually have to rebuild the curb because it has to be zero height, can't have any kind of lip or height to it. And then you gotta have that, the whole width of the ramp, and then you gotta taper the curb back up to whatever curb you had. So now you just fixed 20 feet of curb to make a ped ramp, and then because you did curb, you got a 2-foot bit patch in front of it. So now you have a 20-foot wide, long, 2-foot wide bit patch to build, and that's a different subcontractor. So by the time you're done with it, there's 3 different subcontractors, and you need to have that certification to be able to build it right, and it all just adds up.
So if you do that, like off the front, if you do it before the road's even constructed, it's not as much cost, because
Right.
you're not redoing what's there. So the redoing what's there is the expensive part, the curb and the bituminous area,
Yeah,
that's,
so 5 grand of it is the redoing
Okay.
curb and bit patching. Yep.
so we are doing, major project there with cedar, dogwood, and birch. So would we realize, we would realize a cost savings, because we're doing curb there if we plan for this now? Is that what I'm understanding? So if we had that in that project?
So specifically, if you see on that figure that I attached, or Josie attached, that had the red line edits,
Yep,
if you look on Birch, we actually are proposing to do that 90-degree double ped ramp as part of the project, because that is all that'll have to happen, and then it's ready. And we have a crosswalk that is marked across Whiskey already that doesn't have a receiving ped ramp. So we're saying that one should be done independent of the rest of this project because of a crosswalk marked already on Whiskey Road and the non-receiving ped ramp across Birch. So we're already trying to cover that one with our project, and there isn't that much add-on because that can be done with our project.
right.
You go to the Cedar, and if you see how we gotta move that culvert over, and then, yes, I had those costs for the bit patching to be done with that, but I don't know that I recommend paying to move that culvert over and rebuild things to get it prepped if we're talking about skipping over the whole thing anyway, at which point, once it's time to do it, we certainly can, but we're gonna incur, that
The savings,
$40,000 now
right.
to prep it, as opposed to waiting to see what gets worked out, because if we prep it and we put the zero height curb, I don't know, at location B, and then it turns out we get a different easement approved, or the county works something out where we're gonna come at it at a different angle, and now we gotta rebuild it, maybe that culvert that we just moved over now has to extend longer, and we're messing with it anyway, and we're moving the zero height curb and rebuilding it all. Maybe the bit patch doesn't have to get redone, so we could spend 40 grand now in the hopes that we save 10 grand by doing it now, but
Sure,
that's kind of why I lumped it as its own piece.
okay.
If we get to that point, when do we want to mess with the intersection?
Quick question on the easement. Would it be a temporary easement or a permanent easement?
Permanent, because the
Because-
sidewalk has to go on that property.
Okay, so it's good.
And I did have a discussion with the 824 property owner. He is still opposed to it. but he was friendly about it. It wasn't contentious, so that was good. I was hoping that maybe, I could talk him into it, but it is what it is at this point, for that one. Yeah, so with Dogwood Street, is that the same type of situation, or could we have the ped ramps put in now, even if we decide, say if we decide not to do the sidewalk, could we have the ped ramps put in now with this project? With the street construction project? It would make the most sense, correct?
Yeah, we could build the dogwood ones, it's just that they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
And so, it's kind of that, again, why I didn't show it as part of the plan or isn't included in the plan yet, on our project that's out for bid right now for this project. It's just, that change would only come down to that little bit of, that piece of curb.
Right.
And rebuilding it. Maybe I'd recommend doing the zero height curb, but not building the ramps, because
Right.
that's just cost that may not go anywhere.
Sure. I would like that idea, just so that we don't have to pay, say if we don't do this year, but we do it next year or the year after, then we don't have to pay for that curb and the bit patch to already be, you know what I mean?
Sure, I guess the one caveat on this whole project that we got coming is we're not redoing all the curb.
Right,
So
oh,
we may
true.
not have been planning on ripping out these pieces of curb with this project. I don't know if it's in good shape or not. but
Okay,
Maybe if it's in acceptable shape, we would have left it until the day that we need the ped ramps. But, then we're only saving that bit patch strip item, by, in cost. But we could certainly zero height curb those, prep it, and at least it's waiting. That wouldn't add much cost, and at least then we don't have a patch in our street.
right. I think I'd be in favor of that. I think it's a good long-term solution. I mean, I don't know that we're gonna get this funded this year. It's a lot more money than I expected. But there's obstacles, and so,
We just need a company to specialize in these ramps and then.
that's
do
what I'm saying.
All of them.
That's exactly it.
Luke Merrill, right there.
Huh?
Yeah, you. I nominate you.
No, I think the city public works seems like they could, I think that'd be a good thing for them, but I don't know.
Set it on,
Yeah, so that was, those were my questions.
so we can let Jason go.
I do have that information for the assessment for new construction in the commercial district. In commercial districts, the total cost for the installation of new sidewalks or trails for new projects will be assessed 100% against the property owner.
Okay, then I would definitely be in favor of getting that sidewalk done. That's needed to be done for at least 5 years, the one on Main Street there. I see every day nurses, doctors, everybody walking, they take their breaks and they walk around town, and they just walk on the street because there's no sidewalk. So,
Is that something that we want to include in the 2026 budget, or would you like staff to look into initiating that now for 2025?
One, I'm still on the fence, so I don't want it added to this year, but we can discuss it for 2026.
Yes.
Okay.
Nick?
Same page.
I'd rather get it done sooner than later, but that's just me. It is gonna be a deferred assessment, so eventually the money will all come back.
Did you talk to 825 as well, or just 824?
I did not talk to 825, so I'm not sure how they stand on it. I didn't know where this direction would go, or where this conversation would go. I don't see it as, we don't really have the budget for it. It wasn't budgeted for, so it's quite a bit. I mean, how much was the total?
150, and 60 or something like that?
It was a lot, so I don't know. Maybe we talk about that more with the budget discussions and just try and, plan for it with Dogwood, with the ped ramps, with the truncated curb or whatever. What did you call that? The curb?
Zero height curb. It
Zero
just
height
has to
curb.
be No height to the back of the.
Yeah, just a zero height curb, and plan for it as best we can, because eventually I think we have to do it, but we don't really have the budget this year for it, so.
And did we want to continue discussion on, sorry, I was finding that policy for the second one, on the heritage section or segment? Is that to be discussed for 2026 budget as
Oh,
well? Or what
yes.
did we say about that one?
That one is a big fat no for me. That is a lot of frickin' money. I don't know, did you guys see that section? it's a lot of money to spend on a,
Which section?
between like Isanti AA and Coburn's, like a walking path there. There's an existing, I think it's 8-foot bituminous up on a mound,
Yeah.
and then it just dead ends, but it's a lot
I
of
did
money.
drive out and look at it, and there is a considerable amount, which Jason had given us information on, is a wetland. It's
Right.
pretty low in that
Right.
one parcel area, just west of the Alano.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna be a considerable cost that may be even well beyond the estimate.
I would love to have it, but economically, I just don't think it's feasible. Is that something, I mean, you don't want to assess that to AA or any other, it just doesn't,
I think it's something to be evaluated once that parcel there, the one west of Alano, starts to get developed, it's for sale. And maybe some improvements will get made for an approach or something that will spark.
sure.
That's
Or
what
the
I'm
county
thinking too.
does, or the county does road work on that road?
They don't handle sidewalks. It's all us, I asked.
Yeah, but they could just make it a little extra wider.
Right,
They do
With a
have,
line.
it does at least have the wide side,
Yes, it
shoulder
does.
there.
It
So that
does.
is at least a benefit, to bikers and walkers.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, and I drive through there, 4 or 5 days a week, and it does have the extra space on the shoulder, so I'm not real keen on jumping at putting in a sidewalk
yeah,
there.
I'd like to see it get more developed there before we
Yes,
entertain
yep.
that.
I guess to reference back to that topic we were talking about on whiskey as well, you know, it is common for counties to have a wider shoulder, intentionally wide for the travel way of pedestrians or bikers. That was one of those items that we actually, on the alternatives that have been talked about on whiskey was, can we widen that shoulder? And as I'm saying, those property lines are at their ditch bottoms right now, and the side slopes are already on the steepest that they go to. Actually, they're steeper than they would construct to now. That the ability to widen it, the extra like 6 feet we would need, puts them over the property line just as much as we put it over the property line. So they're basically saying, well, no, we're not taking on that with our project. Or, right now, they don't have a project, but, you know,
They would.
as part of that project, any of that shoulder widening would be back to, you know, having to work out the property lines and easements again.
And they're not required by state statute to have a certain width of a shoulder there in a residential area or anything weird, a weird nuance to any of that could require them in their next construction project to do something like that, maybe?
No, pretty
Okay.
much all pedestrian ways, you know, paint markings on crosswalks, you know, they're not required, you know, they're optional things. Obviously, safety and enhancing safety are big deals. Sometimes it can help them get some kind of grant funding to say they're gonna make that wider, you know, to be able to get some funding. But without that, there's nothing that requires them to do it.
They're not required to have a certain size, the word just left me.
Shoulder?
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's for the vehicles, so what they have is like the 2-foot bit shoulder, and then a X feet of gravel is.
that's still the same requirement as when it was done back in, whenever it was done
Yeah, I
15
mean,
years
in general,
ago.
it looks like it's pretty
Okay.
standard. So
Dang.
they also have to follow the same state aid standards we do to use state aid funds,
Right,
and so those are the same exact criteria that we have to deal with when we do state aid. It's how wide does the lane have to be for how much traffic there is. Also dictates how wide of a shoulder and whether that shoulder has to be paved or not, and
so do you ever see the traffic count going up so much on that road, they're required to have a bigger shoulder, which maybe could then be used as a walkway? I mean, not technically, but,
So to have to go more than a 2-foot bid shoulder is a lot of traffic,
more than that I'll ever see. Probably,
probably.
okay, all right. Trying to get creative here.
Sure.
All right, so we'll have a discussion again about, I suppose, the sidewalk on Main Street. Do we want to talk about that in budget this coming year, I would assume? And then the other stuff, what do you guys think about the whiskey sidewalks? Talk about that at budget
I think
too?
till we have a plan to do it all, I don't understand throwing money at it until everyone's on board with making the whole thing. Otherwise, it's just more sidewalk to nowhere.
We've been beating it forever.
Oh, there is a sidewalk on the other side.
Right.
I think it'd be nice if we can make
I know
like
we,
an actual crossing to where we can narrow it also and get people to slow down. So kind of a two bird with one stone type of thing.
and we talked about that before, Jason, adding more crosswalks across that highway. I think at every intersection would be good. If there isn't one there already, I'm not sure.
So there isn't at everyone. There is one at Birch, you know, that's actually has the crosswalk blocks painted. And that's the one that I'm recommending we, and are including in this year's project to
Okay.
get those actual crosswalks to have receiving ped ramps. And so that's just completing those, and that at least knocks out one piece of this project, you know, that very north end. I don't really recommend having uncontrolled crossings more than maybe where it currently is. I believe we have one at Birch, and then all the way down at South Passage is the
Yeah.
other one. The moment you have them all over the place,
Nobody sees them.
I mean, there's just pretty much striping crosswalk blocks makes pedestrians think they're safer, but there's literally nothing for the vehicle that changes anything. So it's actually not striping them isn't really changing if somebody's gonna decide to cross the street at any of our streets. It's, if anything, making the pedestrian a little more concerned about their crossing. Because if anything, the historical evidence is they step onto a crosswalk block and they're like, I'm got the right of way, and
Right.
and now a car that didn't notice has a higher chance of hitting them as opposed to it's painted, so there's a reduced chance of hitting them. So the second you add these and you have a, you know, through road with no stops, you know, then you're gonna wanna add signage and maybe crosswalk push buttons and all the chain reaction that also doesn't have the best evidence that it makes things that much safer. And so right now, finishing setting up the crosswalk that's already set up at Birch gives them a receiving place to go, and so that's why I'm recommending that one. But after that, I don't exactly recommend, especially Cedar and Dogwood not having even a receiving road to send them to.
Sure.
It literally would just be sending somebody into a ditch that then they would
Yeah,
cross
there
to
is a
get to
ditch
the
there.
trail.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I don't really recommend adding that at this point.
So I will just remind you guys, the reason that this is such an issue is because if you live, you know, south of Cedar, you have to cross Whiskey Road 3 times to get to the school because none of the sidewalk is finished on either side all the way. You have to cross 3 times is what it comes down to. So if we can eliminate 1 or 2 of those crossings, that, you know, reduces the chance of someone getting hit by a third or 2/3. That's the main reason that I would like to see this finished, but, you know, obviously we got 824. If we build up to 824 and then they just walk in the ditch instead of crossing the street 2 more times, you know, that does the same purpose. But, I don't know, I wish there's an actual solution here unless we're, you know, building a walkway across or something.
I
A
say
pedestrian
we can
bridge, huh?
We can still bring it up during budgeting.
Yeah, definitely, I think that we
So-
should.
I don't want to throw it completely out, you know, if the numbers work. Well, I guess we'll see, but
Okay,
I think we can bring it up at budget talks.
sounds good.
Which we should schedule.
Yeah, that's on the agenda, I think, correct? Yep.
Last one.
All right, are there any more questions for Jason while he's here from you guys about any of these things?
No?
All right, you're free to go. Thank you. Okay, so we did leave off on E6, the Fairway Greens North Park build. So we had decided to approve DW for the 2 items. It was totaling like $35,000, correct?
Yes.
Just to be clear, it's not a full official approval, like
Or
we'll come back with a
recommendation.
resolution,
Right,
but a
right.
consensus that we're moving.
Consensus, yes. And then we are going to talk about the specific items in the park.
Oh, the
So,
sheets?
so the handouts, I'm a little concerned, the hollow log has a high cost, $5,000. I know it's
That-
great
That is for 2,
for 2.
so just an FYI.
Okay. It's only 3 feet long, though, yeah. That's,
Yeah, but you put them together, that's 6 feet.
yeah. I don't know, that one, to me, I think we could maybe hold off on. I don't know if there's maybe we should just do some of this stuff and see how much it's used before we, put, $1 million into it. That one to me seemed a little bit on the high side personally. And then the tree deck medium and short, which is next to the tree deck tall. I don't know that we necessarily, is all that extra cost just the ramp, basically, or I guess
I mean, it's 2 tree decks, so it's both the platforms
okay.
and 10 by 10, and then there's ramps to get up to them for accessibility from the thing. So it's 3 different levels of tree decks we'd have in the park for kids to climb on. We'd have ropes and stuff, getting them up to different spots on the decks. And so it won't be quite that much money, but we can't easily do it in the way that we did the laying out with taking the railings off and stuff, how it will be. So some of those sides won't have railings, so that'll save some money. Because we'll have like a climbing net on one side, so it won't have a railing. There wasn't a great way to,
So it's more
quote
like
that out.
a playground than just a deck.
yes, it's a playground. It'll have like climbing walls and climbing ropes and,
Why don't we do this in all our parks? $7,000 versus $400,000. That's a oof-da. Okay.
Now, is this current pricing?
yes, this is.
So all this is $52,000?
Yes, the total price for all of these items is that
And
amount of money.
then Public Works will be doing that as they can?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It doesn't include we have to add in the Lime Egg Trail cost, which I mentioned before. That's
Yep.
not included in these costs, but other than that, I feel like I'm no Jason, but I did say it would be about $100,000 a year ago, and it's really close, so just giving myself a little pat on the back.
Shout out to Public Works on that too, for wanting to do that. Or agreeing to do it, let's say that.
Definitely helped in my budgeting.
Yeah,
I talked to the guys today, and I said, it'd be a fun little project, to give us enough time to do it, so.
that's kind of what I was thinking. It's a little different, yeah.
Well, and are you gonna just choose like one area and then set it completely up? So as,
Yeah,
as
that's
it's
the
gonna take a
plan.
long time, at least they can start utilizing some parts of it?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be the plan, to do bits and pieces, finish one part, take the next step, do the next part of it, and not leave anything half done, to have it all, what is done is usable.
Yep, perfect. And I had another question. On the cover page of this one, it says estimated funds are $360,000.
Yes.
Is that including the newest amount of money that will be in there, the 80s?
No, it is not.
Okay,
We haven't received that yet, so I try not to count my
yep.
eggs before they hatch.
There really is no true action type equipment in this playground.
What do you mean, swings?
Well, right, that's the only thing is the swing, and I'm wondering, and I hate to
And the
be
rope
the one to
pull-up?
say, let's take the swing set out and put in a couple of other things above and beyond that. Maybe add another net climb or things like that. It's just a thought.
This stuff has gone through the park board, correct?
Yes, this
Oh.
was they recommended bringing it forward to you with these items
Okay.
previously. And then this is what we bid,
Un-
originally sent our quotes out for, after you guys looked at it then, and then we thought we'd go from there. So there's climbing ropes, there's climbing like a pull-up rope that they'll climb up. The side of the hill, they'll climb up the rocks, they can go down the slide. There's stepping stumps, which we luckily have lots, we can make as many stepping stumps as we want this year. Nope, the stepping stumps are zeros because we have our own stepping stumps that Public Works is gonna provide, so, this year, we have a lot of those.
I did have a question about the slab benches. That's pretty expensive. There's 3 of those for $1,000 a piece. Would it be possible that we just hold off on those and just make our own? I mean,
What was that?
the slab benches on the last page, they're quantity of 3 for $1,000 a pop.
That's a total amount. for
Oh,
all
that's a
three.
total,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
Okay.
The ones on the end are total amount.
Okay.
So it looks like some of these slides have to be built up, like a dirt berm. Are we able to make a bigger mound and have a sledding hill, like even if it's a smaller one? Is there enough room on that piece of property? Because I know there's some low land in there.
Yep, I don't know if we wouldn't be able to make the same size sledding hill. I think we'd be able to make as big of a hill as we can with that amount of sand that we have. Because we're not purchasing any sand, it's from the berm we removed. So I don't know how big that gets us.
I'd be scared to answer that question without being out there looking at it firsthand, honestly.
Well, it just seems like our sledding hill is pretty popular, and I'd like to add, at least a mini version on the
Yeah,
other
it's
side.
a good idea, especially if we got the dirt.
Well,
If,
And we're also building dirt mounds in there already.
Yeah, I think if we have the space, while they're hauling, I think we'll be able to make that discretion and haul as much as we can.
Yeah,
Filling in the wetland.
yeah.
We would never do that, so.
Yeah,
So how much is in park dedication funds right now?
360.
Around 360,000, and that's after it's estimated, but it's before this and after the last approval for the port-in-place surfacing. So this is now.
So roughly 300,000 if we approve this project, and is there any other money that's already dedicated out of that fund going forward for other projects or thought of?
Nope, it would actually be about 260 left after, this project's around 100,000 for both the
Okay.
DW quote and this, it's roughly, that's a
I-
rough
Yeah.
estimate.
I'm still trying to save money to upgrade that skate park. I think that should be
But
really a top
basically-
priority.
I think a lot of the park dedication dollars we have right now have come from this neighborhood specifically. So,
Sure.
the neighborhood this is going in and the apartments
True.
adjoining it.
I
So
get it.
just,
Oh, and I was door knocking over there. A lot of people were wanting something for their kids to do over there.
this one is pennies compared to what the other $400,000
Yep.
thing was. I wish we'd do this at all our parks. This
Well, we
is
can.
significantly cheaper.
We
Oh,
can
I'm
just
good with this.
tear the rest of them down.
I'm just wondering how much money it was getting dwindled away because I really,
Goes
I
fast.
really want, it goes really fast.
Yeah,
I'm okay to make a motion to approve it as is. It's up to you guys.
I don't think we should do the logs. I think we should hold off on that. We can do that another time.
All three? Do you mean the slab
The
bench?
the hollow logs, that's
Oh.
$5,000. I don't think,
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm okay with that.
I think we'll see how much it's used, and if it's used a lot, then they'll be excited. If 2 years from now, they get another new thing in there, keeps it fresh. What if we add one of these every year? Keep it fresh, so kids don't get bored as much, I don't know. But that's $5,000, and I don't know, I think we could come up with something more creative possibly.
Why don't, that's for two of them. Why don't we just get one? And if it looks like it's getting used a lot, well, make a decision further down the road.
That's fine.
and we're not making a motion again, it'll come back
Okay.
at the next meeting.
I do have a question. When we have these businesses developing, I've done this myself when I needed fill. Do we ever ask them, hey, if you guys need a place to get rid of clean fill, we'll take it as a city? Because it seems like we need this stuff fairly often. Is that something we've ever done? And these businesses are usually happier than heck for you to take it because they don't have to pay a trucker to go as far to dump it. That's something that maybe, you could ask. Like, I know there's businesses that want to add on, and then you get a couple dump truck loads and have it.
A lot of the businesses we've had recently have needed fill, so it hasn't been.
Well, there's another reason to
Yeah.
try and collect it.
I think that's gone both ways, and since I've been here, we've seen people want to come in, developers want to come in and get dirt, and we've seen them want to come in and get rid of dirt.
Right.
I don't know if we've ever really done it a whole lot, to be honest with you. If we did, it would have been up in that Isani Parkway, Blossom area over there. There was maybe something over there that I can remember hauling some dirt. back and forth, but I'm not sure if that's always been the practice. But I
Can
do
we-
remember hauling dirt over there.
Could we make a push for that? Because if there's dirt they want to get rid of, it's saving them money. And then if there's a new developer coming in, we could use that as either an incentive or sell it to them as, you know, they need fill. Hey, everybody's happy at that point.
We have sold fill before
Okay, so
for a
could,
project, when there was road restrictions on.
okay, so how would we just have that as like a guideline for staff to ask? You know, if it looks like there's gonna be a bunch of fill, ask if they need a place to get rid of it? Or how would we do that so that, you know, even if we're not up here, maybe that's just a policy? Is that something that's reasonable?
We can certainly ask developers if we know that their site is high or something, but for the most part, fill is sellable. I mean, they can turn around and sell it or have a company come in like Bjorklund come remove
Sure.
it for them, but yeah.
Okay. No, then we wouldn't even have this discussion if there's enough fill or sand to make a hill, we'd have it, so. Okay, any other, let's see, next. So we have E7, setting the work sessions for the 2026 budget.
Sorry, can I just get pure clarification here before I make the resolution? So we're moving forward with the, we'll have to write the resolution. So, we're great on the DW quote stuff, we discussed that, and so we're just, all of the other items are good except for one hollow log.
Actually, I'd go for 0 hollow logs. What do you
And
guys
I'm
think?
going to go and say, leave it as is.
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
He's at 0, I'm at 1, you're the tiebreaker.
I mean, 3 feet for $2,500.
I don't know, have you ever climbed through an actual hollow log? I never have. I think it'd be cool.
So it's a matter of 1, 2, or 0.
It's park dedication funds and the park board recommended it, so I'm inclined to go with it.
Both of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new park, do it right. People won't, if you're worried about stuff not getting used, the less stuff you have in there, the less use you're gonna see, because the less straw there is, so I mean, I don't know. I'd say
there you
just
go.
let the whole thing go.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, we'll leave it as is, thank you.
Good discussion. E7, setting the work sessions for the 2026 budget.
Okay, so it's typical at this committee meeting that we do set budget work session dates. We typically have had 2 to 3, depending on what we wanted to go through. I know that there has been interest expressed that we want to go line item by line item in the capital improvement plan. I would suggest, if that's what we want to do at a public meeting, that we perhaps look at doing a full day budget work session, at least a 6-hour with having a lunch break in there, so we can go really into depth, if that's something that's of interest to the committee and council. The other question that I'd like to get asked, or find out the answer to, is who do we want present at the budget workshops? So we do have our interim services ABDO currently. If it is requested that they be here, I have to make sure that this matches with their schedule. So if you could give me your preferred dates, but then maybe also some backup dates of what you're thinking, and I can get something set up. And this will ultimately need to go back to council for approval, and then we will post notice of all these workshops. But just looking for direction.
So when do you normally, what day of the week do you normally set up a 6-hour?
It can be it's up to council when you'd like to set it up. I mean, just make sure that it works with my schedule as well. I'm pretty flexible for the most part. If we're looking to do something in July, we've typically done our 2 budget workshops in July. Last year, we did July 16th. Oh, excuse me, actually, it was 1 in July, July 16th, and then August 7th, August 20th is what they were set for last year. But we did them following either before council or after council, so they were only roughly a couple hours or so.
If we do it before, or if we do it with the council meeting, we definitely need to do it before, so we're not paying that ABDO to be here the whole time. Like if we were to do it afterwards, I wouldn't prefer that, because then you're paying ABDO probably to sit here longer, I would think. If you do it before, I guess we're set to a certain amount of time before council, so we know how much time we have, if that makes sense.
We can just designate a cow meeting for the budget session instead of actually doing another one. And if you decide on a 6-hour one, I'll watch it on YouTube.
I'm just trying to be cognizant of, if we want to go line item by line item, that will take time, and that's what I estimate that to be. So I don't want to say that you need to have a 6-hour meeting, but that's just what I estimated it at. If we don't want to go line item by item, if we want to have council review everything like we've done in years past and just bring up some maybe topic points at the meeting, obviously that's less time at a public meeting, but
What a predicament we're in with this. This is the most important thing for all of us is
I know.
taxpayer dollars, and we don't have a finance director that knows
I
what's going
know.
on to help us with this. So I hate to say it, but we're gonna have to spend a lot more time with this than we usually do.
I think you're right.
And this is the most important thing we do for our community. So in my eyes, it's taxpayer dollars. I don't know how we set it up though. I'm okay with the 6-hour thing, but I know everybody else here isn't. So that's tough.
As long as it's on a Friday.
our typical ABDO day, and not that it can't be adjusted, is Wednesdays. That is what's already scheduled in every other Wednesday, but we can definitely look into see if there's other availability. The other thing to consider is, do we need ABDO to be here while you do the nuts and bolts of everything of the line item by line item? I'm not sure if you do. I think that probably I can take notes very well. And
Yeah.
it's what ABDO will help me with and assist is behind the scenes, which even when Mike was here, he did not recommend adjusting any of the budget worksheet documents or Excel spreadsheets during the meeting, because you're just asking for a formula to get mixed up, and then it doesn't
Yeah.
get, ported over correctly. So I think the nuts and the bolts of it, I would recommend that we don't need ABDO for that,
Yeah.
but it would be for once all those numbers have been input into a draft, that they could be here.
So maybe we just schedule a few and see how it goes with just us, and then maybe for the last one or two, we could have ABDO here. Does that seem like a more reasonable thing? And spread it out, so we have, on non-cow nights, we have a 2-hour budget. So we start at 5 and we have our 2-hour budget meeting discussion. We can talk about as much as we can get through, and then the next month, we can do another 2-hour, 5 to 7, or 5 to 6, or whatever. Does that seem?
I was just gonna say, I have one more option. I mean, if you're off on Fridays,
Only in the summer months.
okay, well, I mean, if we did a 3 to 9 meeting, if I couldn't make it at 3, I'd probably be here at 4:30, and I would make most of the meeting and could watch the other on YouTube or Facebook. If we decided to go that route, that's the only option I could think
Works
of,
for my
going to
schedule,
6-hour. But then, you have staff having to work late on a Friday.
I don't know that
Either.
we're gonna get the productivity out of a 6-hour session. People seem to hit a wall here after
So
2
I
or
think
3.
so,
threes?
too.
I mean, I would love to do it, but I think there's,
I think 2-3 hours and everybody has enough input to go home, think about it, and then do another 3
Yeah.
hours. I seriously think you'll have everybody's attention a little bit better with shorter meetings.
and I know city staff usually on, 6 o'clock planning commission, a lot of them stay here anyways, so
Sure.
if we do, 5 o'clock and hopefully nothing comes up on planning commission.
That's the thing, we would not know, so.
Right.
1 hour, I think by the time you start getting into it, I don't know if we would, talking about, well, it doesn't really matter, actually, capital improvement or budgeting by departments, because I do think we should go through each department.
Sure.
As that's what's been expressed to me. You may not even get through one department in an hour, and it is nice to get through one department at least, maybe more,
Sure.
but to finish that out for the thoughts, otherwise, my concern would be that if we did half of it now, half of it later, then you're like, oh, but we should change that. Like, it's nice to have, what exactly do you want done? What do you want to see changed? So then I can put those into budget documents. If I put them in and then we change them back and forth, that's not ideal, especially if I'm having it reviewed by ABDO, because then we're paying them a lot of money to do it multiple times.
So if we have, our planning is usually at 6, could we just do planning for these budget sessions to be after the council meeting like we do with EDA? So then if we start at 5, we're guaranteed to go until 7. And then we have our 7 o'clock council, and then planning is usually 10 minutes tops. So is that something we could do?
We could do that as long as we post notice, so we just have to make sure that that's
Okay.
posted on our website, which is definitely something that can be done.
I think that's how we should do it. Then we're on our non-cow nights, we start at 5 o'clock, go till 7 on budget, and city council, and then the planning to follow. I think that, and if we do that every month until the end,
Are we-
hopefully,
Would we be starting that then on the first meeting on July 1st and doing 5 to 7? That we don't have a planning commission meeting, so that's the first 2 hour? Or do you want to start it on the second meeting of COW, which would be July 15th?
no, not on the cow, because then we'd have to bypass the cow.
Okay.
I'm good with
Oh.
compromising and taking, and bypassing a cow or two. I think we can make it up. But I don't know.
These cow meetings always go forever. We're
What-
on 4 hours and only an hour of it was council.
Well, if you'd stop being such long-winded.
Yeah, but it's good to have the combo. That's how we save the city money.
I'm free on Fridays at 2, so I'd rather just get it all done in a Friday. But
Yeah, if we can do a two sessions, 3 hours at a time, I think that'd be a good one, if we can make that possible.
4 to 7, then I'm pretty sure I can make them. Might be in my work clothes, but I might be able to make them if we did them on Fridays, like you were suggesting, 4 to 7.
I know everybody, it's not our
Do 2 or 3.
best day, but
Yeah,
at least I can go home and go to sleep and sleep in the next day.
and we're not keeping staff real late. I'm sure they're not happy about being here till 7 on a Friday either. But it's,
Steve's not gonna show up until at 5:36.
I know that.
We have to consider that he's a fifth council member.
Right, well, it'd be the same thing if we have it at 5, whatever day you decide to have it. It's gonna be the same thing, so.
Would we want to consider a different evening meeting, like a Wednesday night or a Thursday night in the evening and do like a 5 to 8, not on a Friday, but, or whenever people are done with work?
I actually like that idea better and just have just that meeting instead of trying to do 2 or 3 different meetings and just have it on a completely different day of the week. I like that idea. I just have to make sure it doesn't interfere with my
I know.
district meeting.
Well, I know Nick's pretty busy in different days.
we're gonna wrap up on Wednesday here in a couple of weeks, so Wednesday will be open.
Your Wednesdays will be?
Yeah, they're gonna be done with the Wednesday programming for the summer.
And then is that the only day that really works well after that?
Friday after 2, but yeah.
Wednesdays and Fridays. So do a Wednesday?
I'm fine with Wednesday.
Wednesdays are fine.
What was wrong with doing it 2 hours before, from 5 to 7 on council night?
It's kind of, it's a lot, if something comes up and there's a bunch of stuff, then you're
Right,
having
we
to pick
can
and
all-
choose as opposed to just pick a different night, be dedicated to it and not, I don't know, just get it done, right?
I mean, I just see the city staff's already here that night. Most of them stay. I think taking them away from their families and all of us away from their families another night.
I guess
like
that
that.
should
Yeah,
we should
that's just my
discuss that as
opinion.
well as what is the expectation of staff? Obviously, I would be here.
Yeah.
Do you want the department head to be there as well? So we could determine likely which departments we would be discussing on those evenings
Yeah.
that are scheduled and have that department head come, but not the others, right?
Yeah, one department head at a time.
1 to 2, depending on the
Yeah.
part. Obviously, Matt's, we would, combine all the little ones together, and then maybe he has multiple meetings because he has water, sewer, those are bigger.
Yeah.
But, okay.
My only thought of having it on an off night is everybody's focused on just one thing instead of many different things that may be on the agenda, and we don't know how hard of a subject it's gonna be or how much research we have to do for it. Just,
Well, and truthfully, we only need to publish and notice the start time. We may say it's 5 to 8 to plan on, but if we're rocking and rolling and that department head's still here for the next discussion or whatever, next department, same one, you could go to 9 or 10 or
sure.
just if you felt invigorated to keep going.
Should we just go down the roll and see what everybody's thought is, see if there's any
Sure.
consensus, or? I'm for like a Wednesday meeting, 4 to whenever, till 10 if it went, that's fine.
I'm for the non-committee of a whole meeting night, start at 5 and go till council at 7. Do that every month. We'd knock it out.
I'm okay with the Wednesdays.
Same.
All right, well, that's fine. Steve's not gonna be okay with it, but
I know he isn't, but he wouldn't be okay even if we did it at
If it's
5
5
o'clock.
on Tuesday or 5 on Wednesday, it's gonna be
oh, so it's 5, not 4.
4 or
You
5,
said
whatever.
4.
I heard
Either way, it's
4.
gonna be the same.
I did say 4, why don't we just make it 4:30? Gives him an extra half hour, gives me an extra half hour.
I'm fine with whatever. My schedule's flexible, so.
Actually, if we could go 4:30, that'd be better. I never know what my day's gonna bring.
All right, 5 to 8 is right on.
I think 5 to 8 would be a good concession, trying to make it work for everyone's schedule.
Okay,
Let me check
Depending
just
on
to make sure.
traffic and stuff like that, so we're not constantly like trying to
all right.
rush here.
I was just trying to get as much time.
I get it, yeah, I get it.
Possibly
A lot of
could.
traffic between my work and here.
And so if we were to start this on a Wednesday and just set 2, see where we need to go from there, because then we'd be able to have requirements to post it if we need more. July 9th, no, I'm sorry, July 16th, starting on July 16th. And then you could do the next week, if you want to do them close together. Or maybe you don't want them out in the same week as council. Is that too many nights? I'm not sure. Maybe we want to do on off-council Wednesdays?
Yes,
Okay.
I would prefer that.
Okay, so.
I have a fire board meeting July 16th.
Okay, so how about if we start on
Is that every
July
Wednesday?
23rd?
That'd be fine.
So maybe Wednesday's not the best night. You got fire board meetings Wednesday nights.
Well,
Not
just
every, one a
the,
month.
yeah, but just one a month.
Okay.
So if we did July 23rd, that Wednesday, and then would you desire to do the next Wednesday, since that's an off-council week as well? Do another Wednesday on July 30th?
Sure,
And then we can play it by ear?
okay.
Because then we'd have time to skip the next week, which is a council week, and we could post for the one
Yeah.
after, depending on where we're at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are just for the workshops to get the prep, and then we'll set up a meeting where staff can actually, I'll put things in the spreadsheets, all the documents, and then that'll be a different meeting where we bring that back.
Sounds good.
So those were, you said July 16th,
23rd
23rd, and 30th.
and July
Okay.
30th, and then I'll work out which staff come to which based on their availability, and those will be the departments we start with, and I'll let you know ahead of time. From 5 to 8, or 5 to whenever. I'll post 5 PM.
Okay. So let me add this real quick. Anything else in here? Let's see, there were a couple things in old business. Any update with the website discussion?
Yes, so I did update that spreadsheet that you have between the 2 Revise and also Civic Plus. One of them did move a little bit more, so I've included that updated pricing on that. I did add in a third. Now, I know you didn't have time to review, or I didn't send out anything for Catalyst, but I had sent you those other 2, so hopefully you had a time to review the demo as well as take a look at other city websites. I don't think that Catalyst is a contender looking at price and looking at their options, so I didn't bother sending that out in an email for their demo stuff, but let me know if you would prefer to have seen that. And just looking for direction if this is something that we should consider moving forward on. If we do go with Revise, we're not having to amend the budget. We do have enough within our budget because even with those add-ons, it's about what we're paying now. But again, reminder of, we are looking to get rid of, or replace would be better wording, of our Civic Ready notices that I sent out and using what they have. So eventually, this takes all time to put the website together, we will be giving the people who have signed up, which I just checked, it was 52 people, as the max in any one category on our Civic Ready notices. So we'd be using a different platform within the website, but the cost is just that much affordable for the city. We're paying for a lot of things that we don't need because we don't do the emergency notices. Those go through the county.
Okay. I think Revise looks like the best option still, from what I've seen. So Any other input?
What was your input on it? You're more the tech guy.
I tried it on mobile and computer, and some of the sites I went to, they were kind of sluggish, but it could just be the mobile version of them. But ultimately, if she's more comfortable with Revise and has experience with it and likes it, then I defer to her experience with the backside of all that stuff. And
Just to clarify, I don't have experience, I
I'm sorry.
haven't used them, so I might not like them. But I do think it will save the city money, and it will be easier for staff to use.
well, you had seen like the demo of the back end of like how it is to input stuff and do corrections and changes and
That
create stuff.
100% should and will be easier than what we have now, yes.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else with a strong opinion?
Nope.
And I know Steve was.
Websites are not my thing, but
Yeah.
I'll go with whatever you guys recommend.
And that's what Steve had said. I'm good with that too, so.
Okay, so I'll work with them to get an agreement drafted, and this will go on an upcoming council meeting to move forward. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, next, the old bugger, the Emerald Ash Borer.
Bring that up at budget work session.
Huh?
Bring that up at
The
the
old-
budget work session.
Yeah,
So Mayor and Council, this was talked about on April 1st. I'm just bringing back, I got 7 different options here. Just looking for some direction, if we want to do something about the Emerald Ash Borer, or we just want to wait. There's 7 options there to look at and decide what we want to do.
you don't want to touch it? Yeah. Talk about increasing taxes. I think the only option that really makes sense is option 1, which I don't know. Out of those options, I mean, number 4 would be nice, but
Any guesstimate what you think we may have to budget per year to take care of this problem? If
That's a great question. I'm not sure without having somebody come out and give me a rough estimate now on what, let's just say, 25 trees is gonna cost take down, or, 50 trees. I mean, how many trees are we talking about? Because every tree is gonna be different. Some are gonna be real easy, some are not gonna be as easy, just because of possible overhead power, location, that type of thing. Some of these trees, it's not something that we can just cut down and drop in the road. They gotta be, somebody's gotta come and limb them down and drop them down that way. So without having somebody come out and really giving an honest estimate and saying, you know what, I think if you budgeted 20,000 a year, you'd probably have them all gone in 5 years. Without knowing that, it's really hard for me to answer.
I was thinking more like 100, just with I mean, 30 trees, if you have 30 trees, there's a lot of them that are big. If you have 30 that need to come down and they're $3,000 each, there's $100,000 just in those 30.
You have any trained arborists that work at the Public Works?
No.
I would like to see a more actual approach where you guys go out and do a tree assessment for us. If you could actually get a map out, do a tree assessment over the next year, we have time to deal with this. We can deal with the bad ones as they come up, but actually go through and see how many you think you could actually do, the Public Works, how many that it's just not gonna happen for you guys to do. Get a count for us, and then maybe if we could categorize them in, if you think it's gonna be an average price tree to take down or an expensive type tree, I don't know how we can categorize that to kind of get at least a feel of what we're looking at, because really, we don't really have a really good feel of what we're looking at to be able to make a wise decision anyway, and spending the people's money on this right now.
Well, Councilmember Peterson brought up an interesting question as an arborist, and for me to have somebody to go out there or myself go out there and count trees that are ash trees, I'm not an expert. And I think when you start to look at it, you have to look at all the trees that are in the right of way, not necessarily ash trees. We gotta start looking at maple trees and any other trees that are in the right of way, because theoretically, if we're gonna take down the ash trees, you have to take down all them other trees as well. And I'm not sure, knowing how many are out there, and how many, let's say how many are out there now, and if we're talking about taking all of them down, the emerald ash borer is just gonna continue to spread. So you could take a count now and look at them and say, I know that there are people in town also too, that over here on I think it was Second Avenue, are treating their ash trees now, and they're doing that on their own. So there are trees that there's, well, I know a few people that are treating their own ash trees in the river because they don't want to lose that tree. And they're taking that chance on, if I treat it, it'll make it. Now, there's no guarantee in that. I can't tell you what as fast as this emerald ash borer is spreading in town, if that is even gonna, I mean, it's spreading so fast, if that's even gonna work. I don't know, because of the spread that it's moving so fast, you know? I know as far as trees that are like in our park area, taking Legacy out and taking Riverboat Preserve out, there's only one ash tree in Matson Park. Nothing else has ash trees. So it's in Isani Hills development, it's in this development up north of Blossom. I think I talked to somebody, they said 1989 was the last time they planted trees in a development. So potentially there's ash trees in every development before that. So really hard to know. You know, and then it gets be kind of a tricky spot too, is what trees are actually in the right of way without doing an actual, have a surveyor come out and say, well, that tree's not in the right of way. Well, that tree is. It gets to be a kind of a gray area on what trees are there and what trees aren't there.
So do we just leave it and only cut down the tree if someone asks? Because some people, I mean, if I had a tree in my front yard, I would probably assume it was my responsibility.
And cut it down.
And cut it down or take care of it myself. Would it be better just to not even say or do anything else about it, and we just take them down as we get requests to take them down, and that's that?
I think you very well could do that, but I think word is gonna get out.
Right.
And I think we're gonna see when things start to leaf up this spring, we're gonna realize that there's more dead ash trees than what we thought we had last fall.
Right.
I think that might, just my opinion, but that might, all of a sudden, we have a whole bunch of them at once.
Right.
So,
And you don't know of any other grants that
I
have
keep
come
looking.
available?
There's supposed to be the relief grant, it's supposed to be coming out, but it hasn't opened any funds up for 2025 yet, so as far as I know, I can't find anything right now.
I mean, that would be great if we could just say, this is what we're gonna use, what we get for grants, and that's that. If we don't, we don't.
Yeah, when they come up, they're probably gonna go pretty fast.
I'm
because
sure.
everybody's looking at them. The other thing that I've been told is that when they take down an ash tree, that it takes as much time to clean up the mess than it does to actually take the tree down, because when they hit the ground, they shatter
grenade.
like glass.
The grenade.
So
yep.
there's a lot of cleanup once they're on the ground.
Yep.
So ash trees are a little more expensive in that respect. When they take them down, all them little branches are now all over the road. So it's something to consider.
Well, I say we start going with the ones that need the most attention right away, and we're just going to start budgeting some money and then try to go after as much grant money as we can.
Do you have anyone that would want to become trained as an arborist rather than hiring it out? Does anyone have that desire?
I have not heard of anybody with any interest that would. You know, the tree audit too, it's really about how in depth do you want to go with it. You just want to look at how many trees are in the right of way that are ash trees and leave ash trees only, and then the rest of them are just trees in the right of way. I mean, because the ones that are in the right of way probably aren't going to go as fast, but I've heard scary rumors that the maple trees are the next one. That in Ohio, their maple trees are dying off. So it's
Got to stay
Maybe
positive.
we do have to make a policy to protect ourselves a little bit more on this, because it just could be a huge money bucket.
For the arborist stuff, or whatever's limiting us from cutting down the trees ourselves, the capabilities, Is that just because someone's not an arborist, that we don't have someone that's an arborist, or is it, maybe we could train somebody and, pay for the training and give them, I don't know, just so we can keep it in-house?
I can see that, but I don't know how long that would take.
Okay.
Somebody to go around to dedicate that time to one, becoming an arborist, go around, now mark all these trees that are potential, being other stuff that we're taking on for this
Sure.
Woodland Park and stuff like that. I mean, we're taking on that playground, Bluebird Park, some stuff at Bluebird Park, the playground, so we're taking on a lot of projects already, and it's early in the year, and trying to, commit to that and to take on something else. I have no idea how long it takes to become an arborist, what that means if you're an arborist, if there's training after the fact you're an arborist, if there's certain things you have to go through annually to keep that certification. I don't know anything about it.
Have we ever had any discussions with the county on this stuff? We are in Isani County, we do pay taxes. Could we ask them to provide an arborist, or how, is that something that, all the cities in the county are gonna be facing this.
Yeah.
Is that,
It's potential. We could reach out to the county and see if they have somebody that's willing to, we could maybe contract with them or something like that.
they might have someone, I know the parks director is very familiar with trees, and I don't know if I know he would know what all ash trees look like. I don't know if he's an arborist, but maybe, I don't know if that's something that he could, I don't know, I'm just trying to,
The tree companies that I had out, and when I had the Department of Ag out, when they were looking at our trees early on, year and a half, year and three-quarter, year when looked at me when we first started hearing about it, and they could identify the ash trees like lickety-split.
Oh, yeah.
And when they'd drive by in the car and say, well, that's an ash tree. We were a block away, and he was like, well, that's an ash tree. I'm like, how do you see it like that? But, once they have that eye for it, they could, I think I put, 7 to 10,000, that's probably on the heavy side. We could say, you could say if you wanted to put half that in there for now and just see how far an arborist could get for that, and know that maybe downtown is the worst area with the most ash trees. I think downtown are the ones that are the harder ones for us to even take down because of their size. Some of these other ones that are out in, different residential areas are not nearly as big. So for us to take those down, it's a little bit easier. And the lull would help a lot with this situation too. I don't know how much time I can dedicate.
good thing we bought that thing. I've seen you guys driving that thing around all over the place. Like, man, that was a good investment for 23 grand or whatever. Yeah.
So, from the time that it's spotted at its first year, if there's a way to spot it that it's the first or second year that's been infected, how many years from there do you have before you have to cut that tree down or it's gonna fall? I'm just trying to give us a time frame to work with.
6 to 8 years, I have one in my yard.
Just 6 to 8
6 to 8
years and
years,
that
or-
tree's going down, huh?
Yes.
I was told by the Department of Ag in 5 years, your ash trees are all infected, if you're not trying to treat them or do anything, so.
Well, if they're infected, yeah, but how much longer will they stay standing after that? I'm just wanting to see what the
Yeah.
Mine's
longest amount
been
of
up
time.
7 years, and it is,
How hard is the wind gonna blow?
yeah, it
How
depends.
hard will the wind blow?
True, that's true too.
And what happens is, it's really sad, with the wind, we had, a couple ash trees in our yard, and the limbs that are still alive, they all fell off, because the tree can't sustain, it gets weak, and then the live stuff is heavy and it breaks off, so you got this dead tree standing there. So it actually, outside of it just dying, the live stuff all falls off too, so you have a tree that doesn't have anything on it. It's 6 to 8 years, that's all we got. So, even right now, the one in my yard, it's got to go down. It's in my yard, it's not in the right of way, unfortunately.
Well,
But-
we need an assessment. I mean, we're gonna have to pay for assessment if, I can't believe it's rocket science to have to go out and assess these trees, see which ones we have and what ones needs to be taken down, because we don't know what we're looking at. I don't know if we're looking at 100,000, half a million, or 4 million. I'd like that number. I mean, if we're at the 4 million mark or something because there's so many big trees, then we should declare.
A referendum?
No, apply for a natural disaster because it basically is. 4 million on any city is a lot of money. I mean, I'm not saying it's that high, but we don't have a clue right now.
Is that
We
something?
don't have an assessment.
Is that something that we could do if the threshold is high enough to declare some sort of state emergency?
I have no idea.
I like that concept.
I don't either, but if it's really high. I would think so. What percentage of a city or county budget
Well, they
has to be affected before you could declare it a disaster?
we got an estimate of like 400 of them. So I mean, you'd have to have $10,000 per tree to hit 4 million.
But that was just an initial estimate.
Right.
Matt has said the more he goes out, the more he sees.
But still, a lot of them should be pretty easy to fell unless they're near lines.
They're all pre-1989 though.
Oh, but they still should be easy to fall. If you don't have power line considerations or telecom, it's,
I agree with you, but Public Works doesn't want to take it on. What do we do?
So,
cut trees. I'll volunteer and cut trees. I like cutting wood.
so would you be, Matt, would you be in favor of doing the audit? Or like, if, of us directing, you know, staff to do an audit on the trees or,
I would like you to direct me into an audit just to find out how many of these trees, how many of these trees are, one, infected and are, you know, will need to come down soon, and how many aren't infected, that maybe in a couple of years they will be infected.
got it?
And then if we can get that, then maybe I can bring something back to say, listen, we have 400 ash trees and currently 150 are infected, and, you know, just a ballpark figure on what it would take them trees down. And then that's a budget number to go with, and whatever that might be, or half that, or a fourth that.
Can we assume that as we take down the trees and they die and we chop them up, that it's actually gonna spread faster to the other trees? Have you ever thought about that? That's probably likely because the bug is probably gonna wanna find another live tree to infect. So,
The bug will stay on that tree until it's dead, and it'll just move to the next one. So it'll stay there till it kills the tree, then from that tree it moves to the next tree.
I mean, after we cut them down, when we cut a tree down, it's considered dead. Does the emerald ash borer then move on immediately to infect a different tree? So
I would-
exponentially increasing the,
I would think that it probably would if that tree wasn't dead. It's gonna look for a new source.
right,
If that tree is dead, I would say it's probably already found a new source.
Okay.
okay.
So it's the half-live ones that might still have some kind of infestation.
That's what I would say.
I think we should do the audit. I hate to spend the 7 to 10 grand to do it, but I think we have to be able to budget for it. Or even, you know, maybe we can find a grant that requires an audit. So,
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these trees, I'm not saying Public Works can't take them down. There's a lot of trees Public Works can take down. I just want you to be aware that some of these trees are, they're just too much for us to try and tackle with other things that are going on.
So the direction is for Matt to get quotes, and that'll come back to council since that's an unbudgeted item. And then we'd be making a budget amendment to streets.
Sounds good.
oofta.
Quotes or a survey?
What's that?
Quotes or a tree survey?
Well, because it's in the right-of-way, we're only looking at trees in the right-of-way, or are we looking at trees all over city property and beyond?
Only
What would
right
have
away.
to be
Only right away.
I guess I was thinking streets because it's right-of-way. But if we want to open that up to citywide, then I'll probably dig into that a little further.
You're gonna have to have more like, you know, 50 grand versus the 7 to 10 grand.
No, we're not responsible for
Right.
property. It was just right away and then city-owned property, because we have to take care of the trees on our own property, right? Okay, so that would be it.
All right, so that's that one, I suppose. We will go to F4, council chambers streaming discussion.
So Councilmember Peterson came out to the chambers here to meet with our AV technician to discuss some options of streaming. And I did hear back, they apologize for the delay. They don't sell, yes, and they said that you had another contact, but if you wanted a Luxor one, that they could. So with their discussion that they had here, and I'll let Councilmember Peterson share more about it, they provided some quotes, and those are in your packet to be able to stream to multiple options or platforms perhaps even at the same time to do Facebook and YouTube. So that is some of what's in there as quoted.
So the first thing that they had give us the pricing for was to split the signal at the monitor over there. So that way, one output would go to the monitor, the other output would go to the capture card they're showing, which would then go to the laptop, and that would allow for the laptop to stream to until it's hit some kind of limit, but 3, 4, 5, 6 additional streaming services it could stream to. And they gave a price of $13.77 for that. The other bid was for, I guess there's been some audio issues, and the technician had said that there's a network switch in that closet, and it's not managed, meaning there's not a computer in there that handles direction of traffic. So it should have always been a managed switch. So by doing that, you can basically prioritize traffic, which would be our microphones are feeding through that switch, and that's what caused the audio issues. So you can control that flow of traffic, and they bid $14.55 for that. There was a switch I had found with a company I'm familiar with. They do network solutions for college campuses, enterprise, hospitals, apartment complexes. They have a switch that will meet that standard, and it's sold for $400. So I'm not sure how much of that is going into labor, but that's my thoughts on that.
Plus labor.
The $14.55 included labor and the device. The device, I know that can do it. For what he said, it needs to have a specification in there. It has that specification, and it's $400. So unless they're charging $1,100 in labor, I'm not sure where the difference is coming from on that item.
So under 3,000 for,
To correct the audio issues, there's a network switch. That's all that would do, is just make it so the audio is consistent and that there's not problems with it suppressing or not responding properly.
Has that been the,
That's streaming, right? Or is that audio as well?
That had nothing to do with the streaming. That was just network switch to handle the audio issues.
Okay, thanks.
is that just a network switch issue, or is it sensitivity on microphone issue?
No, up there, that box receives a signal from the microphones and passes it over Ethernet to the back, and then it distributes that signal to some other devices. That switch is not, it doesn't have a computer in there, so it doesn't know what priority you want for which traffic, and there is a set of parameters that need to go out consistently. It's time. If that time doesn't go out, stuff doesn't know where it's at and desynchronizes. So the switch that we be putting in, it has a computer in there. You can say, this has to come through consistently, and this is your biggest priority, and then that would allow it to maintain its connection and stability. That makes sense?
Yeah, so do we set the priority on that, or does it automatically?
So it's a setting called QoS, quality of service, and in there you could say highest priority is this device, and then you can also say within that, if you see this type of packet, if it's a network time protocol packet, that needs to come through first. So you can go in there, find detail, and say that's your highest priority, and then everything else comes down line after that. So why he selected that switch is because it had QoS DCSP. The switch I found, which is a company I'm familiar with from Unify, is $400, and it has QoS DSCP as well. So
Do you know how hard that is to hook in?
I have it at home.
So it's something that you could potentially do?
So long as there's no network administration problems. I don't know about passwords or authentication or port forwarding stuff as far as how tight they got on the other side of the thing. If they have it mapped where it has to receive a certain, I can't think of the thing right now. Depends on how locked down the network is.
Okay.
But I don't know who is administering that portion of it, because it talks to the separate thing which he wasn't working with, but I'm not sure on that.
So the live streaming option, you're just thinking so we could live stream to Facebook and YouTube and any other service at the same time? Is that kind of why you brought that one?
Well, the first one was the laptop solution, which can be done even cheaper than what he quoted. That was just picking up the signal from there and then restreaming that to additional services. So there's a box back there that merges the video and audio together, it records locally to its internal hard drive, and it records to an external hard drive, and then it passes that stream to, right now, Facebook. That's how it sends out. It has the ability to do one stream to the internet. But it's also sending that signal out through HDMI to that monitor over there. So you could take that signal, break it up into two, push that into a computer, and then have that computer redistribute it to additional services, and that's where that first solution came from. The third quote on here for the dual recording 8 gigabyte SSD, that would be a new box there that has the ability to do 2 streams. So to capture the HDMI there and rebroadcast it, $1,400. For them to replace that box, they're saying $4,600, and that gets you 1 additional stream. There's another solution, which is the protocol that sends out to the internet could just send out to a computer and then have the computer do all the restreaming there. Another fifth solution is there's a service called Restreaming, which is rather than sending it to Facebook for a monthly charge, you send it to their service, and then you can send it to a dozen different services at the same time. They have a tiered pricing. They start like at $30 a month up to, for enterprise, $300 a month. Many people out there who do it, but that's another option as well.
Okay,
But not $90,000.
right.
So, as far as which direction, there's a lot of different, there's many ways to skin the cat.
Yep. Okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the first option with the splitting the HDMI, staff would manually have to go into Facebook like we do now, and that's super fun. And also go into YouTube manually. I think with the third option that's listed, I know it's out of order, I suppose, but with the box in the back that he was talking about, that one automatically, it's like a push of the button on our pad, and then it would stream out, correct?
Correct.
what about the streaming service option, the anywhere from $30 to $300 a month? How would that be on the user interface side of things? Because, you know, $30 to $300 a month would go quite a while before this 4,500 and 4,600 is met.
Right.
Depending on, I mean, if we're just doing YouTube and Facebook only, you know, $30 a month, I don't know.
At that part, it'd be the same for them. So they
Oh, it's
just,
still the same clunky?
they would go live, and that sends it to the server, and then that server then redistributes it to whoever else you have it set up for.
So that is easy solution? It would be,
That's an easy solution, yeah.
okay,
And then there's more complicated solutions.
right.
There's bypassing that thing entirely and just doing it all through a dedicated computer through OBS, but it has more capabilities, but it's going to be a change, and then it would be in the back cabinet versus having the ability to have their little tablet that's wireless that starts and stops recordings.
Okay.
Right on.
I think I mean, I followed some of that, but I think the network switch for the audio, that one is pretty appealing to me at the moment because I'm sick of this audio. I don't know if this would fix it or not, but
What he
Is-
said is it was a network time protocol problem, and that QoS DCSP would fix it. And then there's many different switches out there that contain that protocol, but
so if it doesn't fix it, we get our money back.
My understanding is that network switch would allow us to add more microphones. So we can add more hardwired microphones like what you have up there. We can't wire one here because we don't have the ability to. As to making sure, and it does help with what takes over what, but as to being able to talk like this and still be heard, our mics are still directional. So I'm not sure if it will help all things, like
Yeah,
when we have the
that's-
different heights. And one of the things that Jane and I are talking about is doing something super non-high-tech and putting our little microphone on a stick that makes people like a microphone without paying for a microphone to be added to our network here. So they have to hold it up to their
Yep.
mouth to talk,
Yep.
is something we're gonna try likely at next meeting. But because, I mean, just talking a few inches any direction of these microphones, it doesn't pick up.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it'll help with that.
These ones got significantly better. I don't know what you guys did, but these ones did get better. Like the gain must have been turned up or something. They're way better because you used to not be able to talk like this even.
Well, and he did remove, prior to their meeting, it's been better for a few months, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Because it was designed that if someone spoke, that it automatically toned down every other mic. So if people talked even a little close to each other, or if there was some pickup of the mic, it quieted other microphones. And it was also set that the dais microphones up there would overcast staff. So we weren't able to yell at anyone because our mics got muted if yours was talking. Not that we'd ever do that. So those changes were removed. So then
Okay.
everybody could be at full volume capacity. So I think that's why we saw a slight improvement.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed the improvement myself.
So with the live streaming options, I think it'd be good to do YouTube as well. You know, the cost is, I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's great to do it with Facebook being so clunky and awkward, but I don't think you're gonna get the viewership on YouTube, obviously. Facebook is just, you get a notification when people are live on Facebook. YouTube, you have to be subscribed to get a notification.
YouTube is great at dictation though as well, which we were talking about.
It's what?
Dictation. It auto-generates captions and subtitles
True.
really well. So as far
If
as.
it can pick it up in our microphones, I think
Well,
that's,
yeah, I mean, the audio has to be there, but the audio is there. It does a good job of creating a transcript, and that could be used to get transcripts for the meetings.
Okay.
Another thing, not to complicate it, but that what we could look into, and what is super nice, is to be able to have control of your audio live stream. So like Facebook, once you put it out there, you know, they own it, they can control it, they can take it down, whatever. If we have it embedded into our new website, which is something that I think would be a great add-on down the road that we can look at for budgeting, then not only will it show live on our website, and there's other websites of, like the county does that, but it does store it, and then it gives you a little TV-type looking icon that you can click on. So then it would be stored in multiple places, shown live on our website. You don't need any subscribe account, any issue, anything like that. You just go to our website on your cell phone, and it would live stream it right there. So that's another option that I think takes zero effort from staff to have to try to get these systems to work together. Because some days it works great, and other days it looks like we just can't push a button, but it's just not that simple.
So what's it cost to do that option?
The restreaming service?
Right, to be able to stream, it sounds like three.
I think on the bottom plan, we wouldn't have a problem. It's like $30 a month.
That would take roughly 14 years to pay off. So it's probably the better investment but that piece of that equipment's not gonna last 14 years. So it just makes more sense if we're gonna do it to do the monthly service.
Plus $14.55.
For the microphone, yeah, hopefully that helps.
Well, if we go through them, I mean, we could, I don't know if who administers the network?
Our server,
Sure, yes.
our server is our IT, that's also contracted, not on staff, but contracted services.
Okay. So we could possibly just buy the router or the switch and then have them do the install and permission it.
See how much it would be for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would it have to get through the firewall then?
Depends on how strong the firewall is right now.
Clear as
I can
mud.
invite him to a meeting. I say we do have issues with, not issues, like good issues of good firewalls that when we do something for example, adding cameras, when we did our, interior cameras and exterior cameras, we did those at different times. They can't do it alone. They have to work with our IT to get into the network or, into the server and go bypass or whatever, get permissions that they need through the firewall. So they have to be involved. We don't have any staff that does that.
So the AV company would have to be involved with the IT company either way, even if we hire the AV
If
company.
it's something to get through a firewall or something to have to do with our server.
So either way,
like
we're paying
video.
IT.
That touches the firewall, so if they have it locked down enough where changing that at all would require their involvement, then if they're just involved with its replacement, then it would two birds, one stone.
right? Makes sense. So ask for the IT company to give us a quote or estimate, or are we just paying them on an hourly when we call them in? How does that work?
We pay him monthly for,
Huh,
a flat rate. I don't know if this is a specific project that's not tied to things he typically does. They're probably, I mean, I don't want to guess. I'd have to ask him if there'd be an additional charge for that. For our typical stuff of like, my computer won't work, my email doesn't open, those kind of things is flat rate. We don't pay for him to come out and fix those things. A lot he can do remotely. I'm not sure in this instance, I would need exactly what was being requested of him so he could give a quote.
did he charge for the cameras to get allowed into the network? It's the
I'd
same,
have to, I'm not sure. I don't
Okay,
remember. I'd
same
have to
thing.
look back and look. I'd have to check.
you just need permission to get in, right, basically?
The other thing that I would just need clarification on is if we had the council member do this work and install this, if there's an issue with it, are we calling the council member to repair it or troubleshoot? Not the AV person that we have, because I don't know if they're gonna work on equipment that's not theirs. I'm gonna guess not, but I don't know that 100%.
Interesting question.
It sounds like just passing through there that there's not really much they were doing with it, because if it was unmanaged before, they had nothing to do with its configuration. It was from the previous install, so they kind of just didn't touch it at all when they fixed the issues that when Offen World took over.
Right, we didn't pay to upgrade
Yeah.
that, but if something's in there, I mean, if something breaks in there, if something goes bad and we needed something, I mean, we would just call them to come out and fix it. Like the issue that we were having today, Jaden was on the phone with them in the back room, pushing whatever they said to push. That's something that staff wouldn't have been able to do on our own without that service. So I'm just making sure that if something got installed by anyone, any company, I mean, we need to be able to find out who's going to be giving the support for troubleshooting if there's issues. This room has issues. So it could be something very simple, should never have a problem. Install it and forget it. Probably any other place, but in this room, there's always problems.
Speaking of problems, the Wi-Fi doesn't work at the community center. There is no Wi-Fi network available over there to sign into at all.
I'll have to look into it. I'm not sure it's completely ready to go yet.
Oh, okay.
It just was connected, but we need to mount the stuff on the wall.
Oh,
and
okay.
find
I thought it
for
was.
So
I thought we.
not quite.
Okay.
It was, we got the stuff, but it's not done yet.
Oh,
That was
okay.
last week.
I thought you said you did a test run and it worked or something. Was
She
it?
did a quick test run, but it wasn't in like the place it needed to be.
Oh,
Plugged
okay.
it in,
All right. All
Tested
right.
it, but it's not where it goes quite yet.
Okay. No problem.
They're working on shelving and mounting. I know, she had talked,
Okay. Sounds good.
so nobody can take it.
Any chance you have the time to actually look at that room and just completely redo audio, video, everything? Just from scratch, modern, and give us a price on that?
I've thought about that, and I've also thought about the considerations Josie had brought up, which is why if we're gonna go that route, I would say just put it out for bid. I know that it's not costly. I mean, the camera, the audio, all that stuff is good, so you just would basically be bypassing that system is all you would do. And there's ways to do it better, but, I mean, I talked to some friends who do this kind of stuff, and they were talking about, like, it'd be difficult to spend $5,000 to make it be not locked into this system to where, I think them trying to charge the $4,600 for a thing to stream to is ridiculous.
All these bids seem to always come in ridiculous. It's because we're government and they know they can bend us over on it.
I mean, if there's something to
Point
say
blank.
for it being where you have a tablet and it's got like 2 buttons you can hit, like, it's very simple, but it's not that much more. I mean, you have way more capabilities on the computer side, but it's also open source, and as things change, you're not locked into one system and one supplier and these prices. I mean, I was kind of
I do think that was part of the issue that we came into when we needed to do some upgrades, because we had excessive amount of issues with it was finding a vendor who could work on Crestron, because it was something just not a lot of technicians had experience with, and they just didn't want to touch it. So I think that part of it was that, you know, it was so specialized, so to say, I don't know if that's the right term, that we couldn't get people to even come out and look at our system. We were talking to people out of state who could do it remotely. We were trying to fix things. It was pretty entertaining, actually, trying to get things to work. So we were happy when someone was willing to take it on and do some fixes, but I'm not saying that he is the cheapest. I don't know. I haven't gone out from when we went out years ago with that 2018. I'd have to look, actually, 19 maybe. And see if there's more people, you know, technicians that are able to work on what we have now, because it's not just Crestron, it's been integrated into something else.
I mean, since that time, like, post 2020, I mean, teenagers across the world are live streaming constantly across 9 services. You can do it for less than $1,000. So some company trying to charge $4,000 for that is bananas to me.
I agree. It seems like every bid we get in, I'm like, how is it that expensive? I can go buy this mic for $300 and they want $1,200 to plug it in.
Because they know they're dealing with a government
mean,
organization and they can do it.
At a time, they had monopoly, but that monopoly has been crushed.
Sure. So what are you guys' thoughts on, I mean, do we just maybe go out for bid to see about,
It's a complete overhaul is what you're thinking, like just something
I
from
want-
scratch,
I'd like to
not
see a
using off what we
total
have?
I want overhaul. I mean, the microphones, I think, do a decent job, and it's just the interface that might have a problem. The camera doesn't need to be replaced. I would say just the point of reception, rather than that box, going to just a normal computer with running Windows. And I love the OBS software. It's used by people across the world to live stream all the time, and it's open source. It's constantly being improved, and it's stable. It's easy. But for the short term, I would say to see if it's worth it or not, though. I mean, like, we can try and do the restream service, figure out that's viable, and then change the switch and get that part fixed. But that's what I would.
the audio switch,
Network switch.
network switch?
It's a network switch that handles audio.
Okay, got it.
Well, will that still address staff's microphones? I mean, we've kind of addressed ours and they seem to be twice as good as what they were months ago. Can we improve theirs at all?
I'm not an audio technician, but according to him, the issue was that the network switch is unmanaged and it needs
I
that
got
specification.
that.
So that's what he said the correction would be.
Why didn't he say that 2 years ago? We've been asking about this every 6 months, it seems like.
I wasn't here, I don't know.
Okay,
We did have a quote for a managed switch before we didn't do it. It was provided.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
But that was when we were talking about adding microphones. We also had a
Right.
quote in there for ceiling microphones. There was a few other options that we explored at that time.
We didn't have an audio guy or a tech guy here on council though, so that helps.
I don't know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, so Nick, are you in favor of, trying to buy it and do it ourselves? Or would you rather, you think the 1,400 is,
I would
What
do
do
it
you think?
myself, but I don't know the legalities and the complications it might have with me doing it. But I know that I have friends who would be happy to put in a bid for it.
okay? I think we should try that.
Well, do we have to go out to bid or?
I think you should.
Well, I think to make sure that we're having people compare apples to apples as
Sure.
best you can, there should be a specification sheet that you're asking people to provide. So
Okay.
I don't know if I'm the best qualified person to write that spec sheet. So
I can give you
just
specs
throwing
if you
that
can
out
write
there.
the,
But I think it's very important to make sure that if you're having people, it doesn't have to be a full RFP, but at least they're providing the same quote on, you have to get very specific, and from my experience, very specific down to the brand even, or asking for multiple brands, because one network switch of Luxor may be double the price of a different, exact, same, similar, but different brand, right? So when you're comparing apples to apples, maybe it's warranty, maybe it's, just the lifespan of it, all these different factors come into play. you should narrow it down to what do you think is the best brand for what we do here. I'm not qualified to say what brand would be good here, I don't know. But if that's something that council wants to give direction to a council member to design or, to come up with those specifications, I mean, that's definitely the prerogative of the council.
Did they spitball you a price at all, your friends? Did you talk to them at all about the 1455 or whatever we were quoted?
On the network switch,
Yeah.
I mean, we run that Unify stuff at my church too, and it's super easy and simple. Like they're basically designed to be the Apple of network switches. Super user intuitive. You can get as nuanced as you want, but they have very approachable controls and stuff. So, I mean, as far as configuring it, should be like less than an hour of time.
So it will plug and play to all the existing hardware we already have in place.
It's plug and play if you want, or otherwise you can get into and lock stuff down and get really nuanced into it.
Okay.
But
I'm maybe gonna restate something. If we do have people who we know do the work and a friend might wanna give a quote, I do think we should do a full RFP. We have to make sure we're being fair and unbiased.
We don't do that for these contracts. We just send it out to this guy and we just take his bid. We don't do
Well,
an
not
RFP
every
for any of
time,
it.
but we looked hard to find someone who would work on Crestron. I do think,
Right.
I mean, I probably am the one who wrote it. There probably is an RFP back in the day, or at least quotes that I'm sure it was an RFP because we had so many issues and it was to upgrade our system.
But we didn't
and
go
then
out for an
that-
RFP for these things. We just sent it and he just sent a bid.
We
and
don't do RFPs for repairs, but if we're looking to do a full overhaul, I mean, keep the camera, keep pieces that work.
Oh, we're
like-
just talking about right now, just the repair, just adding the one switch, correct?
Oh, I thought we were talking about getting a better, simpler system. If we're changing some of our system and the rack back there into something else, touch panel, that's different than this because it's now not Crestron, it's something else. That should be by RFP to make sure that we get the word out.
Right.
there's two different solutions at play. Like, there's no point in gutting all the audio. So to fix the audio, according to him, it has to be a managed switch. So that's one thing.
Right,
Then it's, as
correct.
far as the other thing, you can either go the Restream route, or you could go and bypass Crestron, keep the audio, keep the video, all that stuff, and then put in a computer rather than one of these streaming boxes that Crestron had, and then do all that. So there's two different things at play.
So
They could both be done by the same provider.
I thought we had talked about trying the streaming service for
Yeah.
$30 or $40 a month,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about fixing the audio issue, which was the $400 box, and this company wants $1,455 to put it in. That's what we're talking about, right? Just putting in that unit itself at the moment.
Sure.
Okay, so could we just, if you talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I'll put it in for $200, we wouldn't have to go out for a bid on something like that, would we?
Well, putting it in isn't the problem, because that's easy. It's just
Or you hook it, yeah,
permissioning
right,
it to the
right,
remainder of the network is
Right.
where the problem would be.
right. All the hookup and whatever, the tech stuff.
That part's easy. That part could be complicated.
Okay.
Well, decide what you want to do.
It's not just me. I think we should try the streaming thing, try and do it on Facebook and YouTube, for the service,
I agree.
the service of $30 to $50 a month, whatever it would be, I think that's fair.
If it makes it easier.
If it makes it easier, we'll see what the traffic is, and, in the meantime, maybe we can do some sort of a bid on cleaning up what's in there.
You had mentioned Swagger,
Swagit?
Swagant.
It
Did
was-
you,
It was approximately 3,000 for the year, and then 3,100, I believe, for the year. Maybe some initial setup costs to get everything implemented, but that was to embed it into the website as well.
okay.
What do you think, gents?
I hate to say it, but I'm unclear
Right.
on exactly what would be done. So if we go with a streaming service, is it going to be put into the system? So, added as a button on our panel?
Rather than that going to Facebook, it would go to the Restreaming service.
So what is going to tell this to stream out to not Facebook? Because that was set up by the AV technician.
Often World would have to change that to the restreaming service. And all that requires.
So
them
we
to-
still would be using them to do the integration?
So long as we have the Crestron thing, they would have to advise on how to change where it's being streamed to, or do it.
Okay. I'm just making sure it wasn't somebody else who's going to modify this. I mean, it can be, but I don't
Is
have
it-
the technical expertise to get into the IP address for this to make changes.
I could try. If I'm allowed.
I say everybody sleeps on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bring it
It's
back in 2 weeks.
10:06. Let's go home.
bring it back in 2 weeks. I think,
So the last item then was the code enforcement discussion. That can be fairly short, but one thing that, as we start talking about code enforcement, we've had some complaints about code enforcement not, people thinking that it should have been addressed before, and why isn't it? Why don't we have someone driving around?
that's not gonna happen.
So,
Point blank,
being
it's
that
not.
we are complaint-based,
Yep.
we actually don't have that in writing. So one thing that I would recommend is to create a policy or just by resolution that that's the desired direction of council, is that we are complaint-based. So when people ask, when they're like, well, here's what your code says, tell me that, where does it say it's not complaint-based? Like, it doesn't say that.
So why was
So-
that not said? Because we've had this discussion like 10 times. It's complaint-based, complaint-based, complaint-based.
And that is the direction that we do, and we have done that, but it wasn't until just recently when people have asked, well, a person has asked for proof, and I have no proof, other than minutes and things like that, so it would be best, in the best interest of the city, to have a resolution that states, the city council, whatever the reasons that you have, can be listed out in there, that's in the best interest of the residents, to add for flexibility, or, I don't want to put words in your mouth, whatever your reasons are, that be done and approved by resolution. Otherwise, it's just staff saying that, well,
Yeah.
that's the direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we need a resolution on that. That's been our whole discussion.
Right.
Okay,
It's
so,
just basically putting it down in writing, so
Got it.
if anybody asked, yep, this is the direction.
okay. And then I do have a couple of quick questions on this. So this is something that, I don't want the town to look like a dump, but I don't want someone to drive around looking for a tire 2 inches off the driveway. But we have to find a medium, and this has been, I thought it was always complaint-based, which it is, but what happens? So, there's a lot of people that have been complaining, but then they don't put in a formal complaint. Well, if they don't put in a formal complaint, we can't do anything about that. But the formal complaint process, what do you have to do for that? So I can tell people, if you don't do this, nothing is gonna happen. Do they just have to come in, write on a thing, hey, there's a issue here, can you look into this? Or do they have to, what's the process like on that? And then after that, who is in charge of actually enforcing that? Because it seems like, from what I've heard, there's a lot of people that say they've put in complaints and nothing's happened. So I just want some accountability on what they have to do and who's in charge when it gets here.
Yeah, and perhaps we put that in the resolution, but I'll kick that over to Chief Myers, because code enforcement is within the police department.
And we do have someone that handles code enforcement. There's someone
We do.
on the internet that has been saying there's no one that handles code enforcement.
no.
There is, they're just not they're not a full-time
We
staff
have a-
member.
And we have
Yes.
a part-time staff members, that is one of the key areas that they do, as well as some community things as well. It goes over to the police department, but there is another avenue of enforcement of code issues and compliance issues, and that is zoning. Those come back over to Ms. Hillesheim's department and community development to address. So there is a split depending on, so it's never just one person. It depends on, is it that there's junk or too many tires or something that someone's complaining about? Or is it siding or roofing not being completed? Those actually go to different locations, but I'll let
Okay.
Chief talk about his process.
This has been a heavy topic on the old interwebs, so.
I would say most complaints come in via phone directly to the CSO, which is that goes into the records management system. That's where most of them come. Some come in via email directly to him. And I know we get every once in a while, we get some that come, must be a general mailbox because they come from City Hall that get transferred over to JED. So they come in written form or phone form. They go in records management. They also go into another file, which I think is a continuation of the old, so it's duplicated. Just the complaints are duplicated. It's a continuation from when code enforcement was in City Hall. so that's continued as well. But part of the frustration that the CSO has is you'll get, like for a grass complaint per se, you know, it's laid out how many days you get a complaint, they go and takes a look at it, has to say it's over whatever the regulation is, then he'll write a letter, don't get that letter, then he'll have to write another letter or post it, wait the recommended days before there'll actually be an abatement on that. Same thing with anything else. There's no code enforcement that happens within a week or 2 or 3. And the, most of it gets voluntary complied. I'd say 99% of it does. And very, you know, the other issues you can either do with the abatement, but we have been going away from abatements because of the cost of, that it costs to do an abatement. And maybe utilizing the judicial system, writing the citation, making that side actually do the abatement side, they can make them do it. But, you know, you're talking maybe, I know I had that number, I want to say between 1 and 3 actually go to a criminal citation a year. That'd be my guess. I looked at it last year. So that's where the complaints are, and if you look at your monthly reports, those are where those numbers come from, or was what Jed complains for his monthly reports. And most of that, and most of his job is continuation upon continuation of writing letters multiple times. Now, if you want, we can write very few letters and write tickets out all the time, or write multiple letters and try to gain, I mean, look, either way works, right?
And I'll clarify that with his department, the ticket's a misdemeanor. If it's a zoning, that's an administrative citation. Again, a little bit of a difference, so I just want to point that out.
Yeah, so that's, like I said, we've had.
I like the letters. I don't like
Yeah.
the ticket.
So it's, the annoying factor is when you are upset because you're looking out your window at his junk car in the backyard and it takes 4 letters and 3 visits before they're removed, it's very annoying for you to listen or see that for 3 months. But we could write him a ticket on day 1. So,
Right, I understand. So the CSO, what does that stand for?
community service officer,
So CSO, if anybody has a complaint, they go to the CSO.
correct.
Okay, and that's his responsibility to take care of that, or to send out the letters and to do
Yeah.
the process?
And-
Okay,
and all complaints that come to him, unless it's a vague complaint, meaning that there's a car down over there somewhere, right?
sure,
But if there's an actual complaint, they're all documented
okay,
through our records management, which are our record management system, as well as when there's actual violation, then it's documented in another place too, so we have it doubled up on there.
is that public record?
It would be, well, part of it would be. The actual, fact there's a complaint would be, but not anything else.
Okay,
Yeah, I would say our process on the zoning end is similar, and we work with Jed frequently, because we'll often get the calls from people that go to Jed or emails, and so vice versa, he'll send over any ones that he gets that are zoning, and our process is the same, letters, more letters, and then eventually gets to administrative citation, but if they request an extension, we try to honor that, because we usually get compliance that way. It's just working through that process with them step by step.
okay. Does the CSO have a direct email and a direct phone?
Is a direct email, and the phone is our police department direct line. We transfer through
Okay,
there.
okay. Do you know his email offhand? Probably not.
No, I do not.
Okay. All right, well, I'll get that, and if anybody listening needs it, let me know. We're trying to make the complaint-based system work, so. Any other comments on that?
I do have a question with the complaint base. That's all code, or is there certain code that is complaint based and other code is enforced actively, or is everything being treated the same, or?
All nuisance complaints are complaint-based. Now, code generically, that's not true, because, you know, there's parking code, right? We would enforce parking code, but nuisance complaints, or nuisance code violations are complaint-based.
I think there's like maybe an exception of health and safety, like for example, if somebody drove by and saw like a staff person, we typically are not looking for code issues. However, if there's like a a chest freezer sitting out in someone's front yard, we can immediately abate that because the risk of a child getting stuck in there and something horribly happening, there are some things to that we won't, that's carved out right in city code. If we were to see something like that, we would take action, we would remove it. Public Works will remove it, and then we will bill them for having to abate that because it was a safety hazard, immediate safety hazard. I can't remember the exact terminology in our code, but there's a couple things like that.
There's also stormwater, like MS4, we do look for those because we're required to by the state. So just that is something we are inspecting for on a weekly basis or more depending on rainfall.
So nuisance means like garbage.
Your garbage vehicles, junk cars, your typical ones like that, grass or whatnot, yeah, we don't actively, I mean, if we see them, we don't actively do anything with them.
Right.
What parking on sidewalk qualify as? Is that nuisance or parking?
It'd be a parking issue. But usually those come in as complaints.
All right. Well, I think we cleared that up. So if anybody's got a complaint, it's got to go to the CSO. We're not going to make it for you. So I guess that is that for that. That's the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Commissioner, or would it be Commissioner? Councilmember. Councilmember Holmgren, second by Councilmember Peterson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned.